Hi, this is Bev Moe of the Bev Bob Homes team with Keller Williams. I am so excited coming to you today because you're going to join me as I interview some of our old buyers. Now, I'm stopping by to check them out and to ask them questions about the buying process, to get their perspective of how things went, and the things they will tell me are going to be kind of revealing for you. It's going to help you if you are a home buyer, if you're a home seller, whether selling with an agent or trying to sell on your own. If you're a real estate agent, you really want to watch this. And if you're a mortgage broker, and a little bit if you're a stager. So come with me as I show you what buyers are thinking. I don't see this out online. I really don't see people talking about this. So I want you to get it straight from the buyer themselves. So get ready for some really good information, regardless of where you are in the States. But if you are in the North Jersey area, please make sure you know we are here, the Bev Bob Homes team, to help you. And you can check us out at homesaroundnorthjersey.com or at bevandbob.com. Come on. What was the biggest lesson you learned about buying a house that you didn't know before?
I think it was don't be, even if you're in a rush, you can't rush. You have to like take your time, even if you're in a hurry. I know that's a bit of a contradiction, but you have to take your time because it's a big decision. It's a huge purchase for most people. It was for us, and we you see something that you love and you don't want it to get away from you, but you don't want to like make impulsive decisions at the same time. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think the other important thing is make sure that you compare. So compare different houses to different houses. So don't get excited about the first really nice thing that you see because it may not be the nicest thing that you'll see. So in our example, we saw a really nice house in the first round of looking, and we were really passionate about it, and it didn't work out, but a few weeks later we found something that was so much better than the first one. So to your point, I think be patient, take your time, and make sure that you do shop around and compare.
Okay.
So,
So was it ever one of those things of you didn't know what you didn't know?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
Absolutely.
did you really think going in, oh, I got this, I already know this?
I think it became a very rude awakening. So after the first time, so we had put an offer on a home before this one, and things did not work out. So the second time around, of course, it made you a little shy as to, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? We shouldn't upset this people. We shouldn't do that, etc., etc. So I think that, to your point, there's a lot to, you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes you stumble across it, but for the most part, I think if you ask the right people, if you Google it repetitively, you'll get an answer eventually. So I think the pleasure for us was working with a great team such as yourself. So we never really felt at sea or abandoned with not knowing what to do.
Was that a hard thing, picking a real estate team to work with, even as a buyer? Or did it seem all agents are the same? How did you go about that process?
I think because we really started looking, when was it? October?
Yeah.
So we were here visiting, and she was doing job interviews back in October. And while she was doing interviews, I randomly went on the internet and found agents and went out and started looking. At that point, I thought that all agents were the same. I didn't think there would be any different, any difference in X, Y, and Z until we found the right one for us, and then it was, I don't know, it was just like almost like a divine intervention almost.
Yeah.
Because it felt that right to have somebody that you really felt was in your corner and ready to go to bat, just like, it shared the sense of urgency the way that we felt a sense of urgency to find somewhere to call home.
Yeah. And I think the important piece that you just mentioned was the piece around connection, right? It's easy to find multiple realtors listed in the area. It's not easy to find the right person you want to work with. So we've worked with a number of other agents before, and you just don't have that connection. Either they don't share the same sense of urgency, or quite frankly, sometimes they don't take you seriously, right? They're not able to accommodate my schedule because I travel quite often, or his schedule because he also does, for that matter. So it's really kind of, because it's such a significant purchase, I think it's so important also to take your time to find the right realtor, as opposed to trying to work with someone that quite frankly does not want to work with you, and that's important. I think the connection is very important.
So a lot of people just look online and whichever realtor they see, or the first one, or open house. So you're saying do a little bit more work.
Oh, absolutely. And I think
Okay.
that you'll feel so much more comfortable if you do that. You'll feel more comfortable knowing that whoever you chose to work with is in tune with what you want, that you communicate regularly. So it's not as though you are only talking to the person once every 2 weeks. So I do think it's important to do your homework and find the right person to work with.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Now also finding the house. A lot of buyers are online first. So tell us, where did you go? How did you start looking for a house? And how did that home look online compared to reality?
We both are not afraid to embrace technology. So, you know, between our iPhones and iPads, we would spend countless nights in bed on our apps, our real estate apps, and so we were looking for different areas and different price points in different areas, and trying to see how those two factors correlated. And when we finally found, well, when she found this particular house, she loved the way it looked online. I had actually seen it online, but dismissed it because I couldn't see past the obvious paint issues and things like that. And but she saw it, and she went back and was like, hey, this one right here is the one that we need to look at. Of course, she's given me that command from wherever you were in the country. So I came out to look at it without her. And to answer your question, it was better in person than it was online.
Yeah.
But then we've also seen some houses that we loved online. It seemingly had the things that we wanted. It looked the way we wanted online, and then went to visit it in person, and it just wasn't.
From an online perspective was, don't be fooled by online mortgage calculators. Don't be. It makes very little mention. So it'll do a calculation on what your principal repayment is, and it gives you no sense of what taxes you have to pay. So you'll see a particular house and it will tell you that the repayment over 30 years is $2,900, and you think, well, I can do that. It's not that bad. Once you actually realize it's in an area with the highest property taxes in New Jersey, and it actually costs $4,200, right? So I think I would warn people about that too. Don't trust online mortgage calculators, because there are so many variables that go into it once you actually sit down and do the calculation or talk to your lender. So
you need to be in contact with your lender, and you know, hopefully find someone there that you can get a healthy level of communication with, so that you can start tossing around those numbers and seeing what's what. Last home that we sold, the agent had like a professional photographer come in and make pictures of the house, and we were looking at it like, whoa, that's our house. That looks great.
I wish I could live there.
Well, wait a minute, we do. So it was. I think we saw a lot of places that location was right, price was right, the specs were right, but then it would have one picture or no picture, or very poor quality pictures. If that's the case and you're a seller, like, don't even list online if you don't have proper pictures or any for that matter. Because we live in a society in a day and time when we're really visually driven and stimulated. So it's important to everyone in this day and time we live in to be able to see lots of things, with Instagram and Facebooks and all that kind of stuff. People want to see pictures. But the more information on a property that you can receive from an online platform is a plus.
Absolutely.
From measurements to specs to everything, when it was built, all of those things are things that I think potential buyers are taking into consideration.
So,
Absolutely.
Because our list of places went from a substantial number of places to then we would narrow it down to the places that we were going to go look at in person. And a lot of times that decision process was based on what was there online.
Exactly.
Well, this one, it doesn't really have any pictures, so let's toss it.
Exactly. And to your point, I think more information the better, right?
Mm-hmm.
For someone like me, I'm constantly trying to figure out how big is the space to begin with, because you're thinking, will my dining room table fit in there? Will my very big bed fit in there? Will all my possessions fit into the space? So the more information you have, the better. And we dismissed a number of places where you see the bedroom is a certain size and you go, well, that's going to fit a bed and maybe a pedestal and that's it, so we can't do that, right?
so what is it?
Well, be realistic, I suppose. I mean, the last thing one would want is to be surprised when something doesn't look the way you think it should look. So even from a dimension perspective, I think so from a dimension perspective, be realistic, because you want to get a sense of would my possessions fit into that space if you're moving with possessions, right? I think the other thing that I would tell sellers also is neutralize your home almost. I know once you've made the decision that you're going to sell your home, you can divorce yourself from your bright green walls, and you can divorce yourself from your bright yellow cupboards or your wallpaper.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of thing that when we looked at property online, and he mentioned it earlier, if you'd look at a property and you go, oh my goodness, that wallpaper is so busy, and how long is it going to take us to remove it? And we
So
can't
wait a
do
minute, the
that.
house may have had everything or looked like it had the bedroom and bathrooms that you wanted, but because of the wallpaper, you just were like,
Yeah, that's human nature. It's hard to see past those kind of things. There's so many shows where experts come in to help sellers sell, and that's almost always one of the first things they do is neutralize the space. There can't be anything that's so extreme. You want your house to be a blank canvas for the
Exactly.
potential buyer, so that they can project or paint themselves into that space.
so you actually start subtracting money if you even go see the house
Right.
or place in the first
Because you're
place.
thinking about all the things that you're going to have to do before you can even feel comfortable with what turns out to be your major purchase.
Exactly, and how much time is it going to take? How much money is it going to cost? And overall, how much inconvenience it would be to repaint the entire property or pull out the bright blue carpet and put down hardwood floors. So my advice to sellers would be neutralize your home and give people a space that they can put themselves into, as opposed to going, no, I can't live with that.
What about if the seller is there or if their pets are there when you
Oh,
go
yeah.
to visit?
It's very uncomfortable, I think. It's extremely uncomfortable to be in someone's space when they're there, right? Because you can't be overtly critical. So you can't tell your realtor necessarily, I don't like this, or what about that, because the person is there. If pets are there, you constantly kind of walking on tiptoes trying to figure out, well, I don't want to disturb their status quo. I don't want to upset the dog, etc., etc. We went to look at a property, I think, which was on a holiday. I can't remember what holiday it was.
It's like a Monday
It was on
holiday.
Monday holiday. And we went with Bob into this house where the husband and wife were there, and they had 2 dogs. And it was just really uncomfortable. So you had to navigate from room to room, and let them leave, and then you go in, and then, you know, but they're always in the next room. So you're whispering, or you're just not saying anything, or you go, well, I'll tell you when we get outside.
Right.
So it's a bit uncomfortable. So my advice would be, please don't be there. It makes sellers uncomfortable. It makes buyers uncomfortable, rather.
So for the most part, what did you expect a real estate agent to do for you? Because it sounds like you were online all night or whatever. You were looking at homes, so you're bringing the list to Bob.
We talked about that, and I don't know what it is or how it must be for a real estate agent in a day and time when there's so many online resources, but we used it as almost a middleman, a liaison between us and the agent to help not waste each other's time almost.
And also a filter.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We filtered a lot of things based off of what we knew we wanted. So then we could tell our agent, like, okay, here are the 4 or 5 places that we know we want to see. You know, based off of I would email him the URL link from each particular page that they're on, and then, you know, it's on him to make that happen, and he always did, and he would have those properties ready to show.
I think the other piece also is, once you do that, so once you give your realtor a sense of what it is that you want, it's so much easier for him to recommend something like that, which you may not know about or that you may not have seen. So I think that was also extremely useful. So Bob knew eventually that, actually quite early on, that based on all the properties we sent to him, is we're looking for something with a basement. We need a double garage. We need blah, blah, blah. So all those conversations and bombarded with people giving you free advice, and it's so confusing until you actually take the time and go look for yourself, because what may work for other people may not necessarily work for you. So that's probably the most important thing that I would remember for next time is advice is great, but go check it out for yourself.
I'm with her.
The process was surprising for me in the sense that there's no direct communication, obviously, between buyers and sellers, but it does make the process quite long. So when you do communicate with your attorney, be very clear what you want to ask and be quite specific to prevent the sort of back and forth conversation that takes days to happen. So if I could do that over again, I wouldn't ask general questions. I would be very specific. Can we close on this date? As opposed to, do you think we could close earlier?
And I think that's why sometimes the agents try to talk and say, can we shorten this a little bit, help this conversation? But you need the attorney to make it legal. What about home inspection? What would you advise or anything about home inspection process?
That was a pretty smooth.
It was smooth for us.
For us, we took the recommendation from our agent on someone that he knew and trusted and knew would do a thorough inspection. So, you know, that was pretty seamless, that part of it. We learned a lot being around and listening to the inspector and watching HGTV and seeing what potential nightmares some people find in properties or end up finding in properties. So that kind of like increased our awareness of what to look for when we went into properties. Of course, some things you can't see and won't see, and that's why you want to get a good inspector home inspection done.
And I think what was critical in making that process smooth for us was the fact that we got a really excellent recommendation from our agent. And I would also advise people to do that. Make sure that you have a recommendation from someone you trust and rely on. Because when you go online, there are millions of people doing that, and it's so confusing. You're kind of closing your eyes and going, okay, this one, right? So when you're doing inspections, rather go with someone that comes with a recommendation from someone that you trust. I think to Andrew's point, the other key piece was we were around when the home inspection took place. So don't do yourself a disfavor by having them inspect your home in your absence. So be there so that you can ask questions and so you can understand what the person means when they say that this is potentially a problem or no, this is not a problem. So take the time out. It does take a bit of time, so it can take up to 2 hours of your day, but it's probably a good investment of your time to make sure that you're there to find out what exactly do they mean, because we're not all qualified to talk home improvement.
Right.
Any last thoughts?
I like what you said earlier about even when you're in a rush, take your time, right? Because that's probably, there were days that I was extremely anxious with, the longer we wait, the longer it'll take for us to do A, B, and C, and you're anxious, you want to move into a new home, etc. But take your time, take your time. The old saying, good things come to those who wait.
Absolutely.
You certainly